go. Welcome, everybody, to Geekvice, episode 262, proving any vice with enough geek can become a virtue. My name's Morph. That man is one of the creators of Underground Inc. and one of the silky smooth voices from Daydream Instruction Manual, Billy. Welcome to the show, Billy. Yeah, I try to come up with something nice for all the people, and what I found is like you and Eddie are like the hardest ones to write for because I try not to like just use whatever I used before. It's like, oh no, I got to come up with something else catchy. Otherwise, it just sounds like, oh, this guy's been on the show like 5 times. Especially, the podcast Arcadians that we get on the show more than once. Yeah, it becomes very repetitive. So I got to come up with something new for you. I thought silky smooth voice worked. I thought about throwing all your bands in there, but I couldn't even, I only remember a couple of them, and I'm like, oh no, I feel like I'd let all the other ones down. I mean. No, what all are you doing right now?
Well, right now I'm actually promoting the show.
Well, yeah.
On the Facebook.
There you go.
But yeah, so currently 3 bands. One is Graveyard Smash. It is a horror punk band. We write our own songs, and they all usually have to do with horror movies and stuff. But with it being punk, it's like some of it's like a little aggressive, but a lot of it's a lot more fun and real easy to sing to.
Right.
And
yeah.
then the next one is another original project called Before I Burn, and that one's a little harder to describe. I've heard people refer to it as being like Slipknot meets Green Day, because it does have those heavier elements, but then it has those lighter, more fun elements. So I don't know. I guess that's something.
that's a hell of a combination right there.
Yeah, for sure. And then after that is a band that I just got with not too long ago called Secret Weapon, and it is a cover band that does all 80s kind of pop rock songs that just kind of anybody can go and just have a good time listening to, and all cool. Based out of Omaha. And
it's right there in your own backyard.
That's the band front.
That's very cool.
Then podcasts are Daydream Instruction Manual, and although it has been on a bit of a hiatus, Underground Inc., our schedules have just been very, very, very difficult to get together with. So
well, and that one's so much harder to do. I can only imagine trying to schedule that, because you have this, trying to be able to do, you all need to be in the same room watching the movie to really be able to get that core of what Underground Inc. was for so long. I know you've done a few where you haven't really gone over a movie, you really just talked about stuff in a normal, a quote-unquote typical, podcast format, but Underground Inc. is known for their movie, commentary, mystery theater type commentary.
For sure.
Yeah, so I can only imagine trying to get 3 people on the same schedule. I mean, John and I barely have the same schedule to really be able to do this on a weekly basis. So I can only imagine how hard it is to do.
Yeah, and sadly, we actually have not been together in the same room since Christmas time.
Oh, jeez.
So it's been months.
Yeah. I don't know. You're gonna have to get a chair and chain everybody to a desk and be like, you must stay here. You're not allowed to leave.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's a little bit of what's going on with my music and podcast front.
Yeah. Well, and you just got done with Okamicon not that long ago.
Yeah.
So did you do the wrestling announcing for that one this year? Because didn't you do that last year?
No, I didn't do it at Okamicon. So the basics with that is at Okamicon and locally here in Omaha, PWP Wrestling and a good friend of quite a few of the podcast arcade shows, Chris Metry or Chris Havius, is a wrestler there and like the main promoter for that organization. And yeah, they have events at Okamicon every year, but they happen to have a show. I don't even remember where, but it was out of town,
Oh,
and
okay.
their announcer couldn't make it, so they know how much I enjoy wrestling, and that I suppose I have that silky smooth voice that you mentioned, and they asked if I would come and ring announce for the show. So it was kind of a one-off deal. If it were to come up again, I would definitely do it. But they have someone that is their
Sure.
main person. So
Sure, but it's always good to be like that's got to be. I mean, that would be really cool. Like that's got to be a
oh
bucket list
man,
item right there for you.
yeah, oh completely. Like I've just been a huge fan of wrestling for most of my life. And before I actually ever got into music, that was kind of what I was like. I was gonna be a wrestler.
Yeah.
But music kind of took over. So, but getting to know some of the people there and them knowing that I guess I have some professionalism and whatnot. Yeah, they asked me to do it, and like I even got my own entrance music,
Oh,
and
nice.
got to go into the ring and announce and have small interactions with the wrestlers and stuff. And yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. That
bucket
is
list indeed.
right. Yeah, that's really cool. No, it's I some of the stuff that we get to do as being part of the podcast arcade, just the connections that we make and the people that you meet from all this, it's pretty crazy.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah, and it really makes it feel like a really small world when all these things start intertwining. So yeah, I found out there's some fellow podcasters that actually work with my wife, and so
Oh
she
wow.
ran into him, and so it was like, it was something he had a picture on his desk from Okamicon, and it's like, were you there? And he's like, oh yeah, yeah. And so it started a whole conversation. So it was like, oh, well, that's small world intertwining, and but yeah, it's really crazy when all that happens, and you get to do cool stuff. So.
Absolutely.
All right, well let's get into this because I know this is going to be a topic that I have a feeling you and I are going to go round and round with because we're both big X-Men fans.
Yes.
Um, I know the last time you were on, we talked about the X-Men universe and the
Mm-hmm.
movies and the franchise in general and where it's all at, and a lot of stuff's happened since then.
Yeah, definitely.
The purchase of Marvel buying Fox to get those properties back. The Dark Phoenix movie, which I haven't seen yet. I need to see that. Have you seen it?
I did.
What'd you think?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like uh as we talked, big X-Men fan, and even the movies, like I know that they get a lot of flack or whatever the case is, and yes, there are a couple that I don't really care for, but uh I liked it. I liked
Good.
it a lot.
That's really
Um
good.
I'm sure there's gonna, obviously there's gonna be people that are like, what were you thinking, but I don't know, like I think I have a pretty decent grasp on like what makes a movie good or not, and I think sometimes, people get a little deeper than that, and
Yeah.
I don't know, people, yeah, it's not Marvel. It should have been with, all the others. Whatever the excuses here or there are for why people don't like it, it certainly happens. And but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked it more than um, the Last Stand, which
Right.
was the original Dark Phoenix movie, and
Right. Yeah.
um, that's actually one where I don't really care for it too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that there's a lot of people that who also don't like that movie and are like, oh no, way better than Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
And to each their own. But for me, I was like, man, I really enjoyed it. I thought the story was really cool. Someone actually brought up a really good point, and this isn't like discrediting um, the actors that are in the Marvel universe, but like having Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, just those two alone, it's like the caliber of their acting abilities is maybe greater than a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of the people within the MCU. So that alone is like, unless it is just poorly edited and the script is just so bad, it's kind of hard to get, you know,
Yeah.
just yeah. So
And that's
anyway,
that's always kind of been the thing for me. It's if the acting can be subpar if a story is really good and engaging. Like you can handle subpar
sure,
acting, and I
sure.
think but I think that's where some of the X-Men movies, because of the acting talent that they've brought in, that it allows for the writing to kind of fail a little bit, and I think that's where the
Mm,
X-Men movies, in my opinion, that's where the X-Men movies have really, um, really to be. I want them to be better. I think that's where they failed, is that writing. And
sure.
yes, we've got a listener here that's actually chatting with us right now. Jesse is yes, multiple man. We need more multiple man. We also need, Morph. We really need Morph from the animated series. I would really like that guy in there too. So, um, but we'll see what happens. I think this is kind of the Dark Phoenix movie is the last movie I think that Fox is writing by themselves, and now we get to see what happens when Marvel has complete control over their characters again. I'm curious to see what they do and how they do it, because they have a choice. They can either combine it together with the other stuff that they have and make the Marvel Cinematic Universe include the X-Men, or, and my personal preference would be cameos in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and make an X-Men universe and have it stand alone all by itself and not worry about combining them. Um, I
Yeah, and that's kind of a thing that I am sad about with, whether or not, people liked or disliked, and I know people want to see those characters together, but what the Fox X-Men universe did offer was something different.
Yeah,
Those movies all felt different than the MCU,
yeah,
and it was starting to get to a point where we had all of our standard X-Men universe films, and then it was starting to move into Deadpool or Logan, where they are incredibly different on their own,
mm-hmm,
and they start moving into mixed genres, and I still believe at some point we're going to get that New Mutants movie,
yeah,
and that's going to be something different on its own as well. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not one of those people that, oh, all MCU movies are the same, but it is a certain type of deal. And I think that getting out of the Thanos thing, the Infinity stuff, I think it'll start to move in slightly different directions. But anyway, like, yes, the X-Men universe offered something different, just
Yeah,
like, DC does, or whatever.
sure.
It's all different, formula, and now it all kind of melds together more, and
Hmm.
it loses. I think it has the potential to lose some identity. It can still, I think it'll still be great, but I think it loses some of its own identity. And
Yeah,
that's actually something that the X-Men universe in comics had. You
hmm
know, you X-Men always kind of felt a little bit outside of Avengers and Spider-Man and
yeah,
Fantastic Four, where all those kind of felt together.
yeah.
So,
No,
anyway,
I completely agree with you there, and that it kind of that the the part of the X-Men that has always kind of stood out to me, the storyline that and part of the reason why I think the X-Men always stood alone and felt different was the tone that was within the X-Men. The X-Men always had this everyone hates us, but yet we're always going to do the right thing idea, where the Avengers and Spider-Man, people didn't hate them. They weren't hated and despised. They weren't feared for who they were. They were the superheroes that always stepped in, like they called them, like, hey, we need help. Call the Avengers. Nobody
no, that's
called,
a really
you
good
know,
point.
and and I think that segues perfectly into what the the latest thing that I just got done finishing, which is The Gifted, on
Hmm.
Fox, and I actually called this to several of my friends. I called it X-Men Lite, because
Yeah, really.
this was X-Men without any of no Cyclops, no Beast, no Jean Grey, no Iceman, none of your standard fare, but it still had a
Right.
lot of X-Men characters in it, and some of them that they didn't even name because I felt like because they did show up in the movies, they kind of re-skinned some characters and gave them some different names, and but they were still characters that when you looked at them like, oh yeah, that's exactly who that is, but he was in that movie, and so they're not going to call him there because that'll cause a conflict. Um, one of them being Bishop, but we'll get into that because I'm a big fan
Okay. Okay.
of
I'm
Bishop.
interested to see where you're going with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, the premise of The Gifted is some sort of epic scale terrorist attack that was done by a mutant, an unknown mutant. You have no idea who it is. They just talk about it happening. It was July 15th is the date. 7/15 is what they always refer to it as. But it caused an extreme level of hatred and fear and distrust of all mutants, and this whole 2 seasons, 29 episodes, is about a family that goes on the run after finding out their kids are mutants. There's in the This show does an incredible job of creating the conflict between anti-mutant people, the Purifiers and Sentinel Services, and the pro-mutant people, the Mutant Underground and the Inner Circle, but then also creates conflict between each of those groups. And
Yeah.
to me, that is Chris Claremont's X-Men to a T.
Completely.
You know, this is the X-Men animated show from the 90s that everybody loves so much. This is them live action. Like, this is what the first X-Men movie, the very first X-Men movie, really centered around, and a little bit of the second one as well. That fear and hatred, that what are we going to do? That was in the second one, and then I felt like after that the X-Men movies kind of went away from the persecution of it to an extent and just dealt with more of a conflict between mutants and mutants.
Yeah, I mean, it was always still there, but yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
It just wasn't as it
you know,
wasn't the
like,
focal point.
First Class was, you know, like you said, it was dealing with mutants versus mutants. Days of Future Past, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean that whole movie was about the extermination of the mutants, but it also had that part of dealing with Professor X and Magneto,
Yeah.
who like during the younger versions,
Well, in
like
the Days of Future Past,
that.
I think is probably a good example, and kind of is a really close analogy to the Gifted, in the sense that the it was two different ideas, and this is what I loved about the Gifted. This two different ideas on the mutant side is you had the humans that didn't trust people and didn't want them there, and Sentinel Services was kind of like the government trying to just arrest people, where the
Yeah.
Purifiers were the anti-mutant people that were like, no, they can't be here. They're a disgrace to the human race. We have to get rid of them. And then on the mutant side, you had the Mutant Underground that wanted to just help people, kind of like the Professor X side of it, and the Inner Circle, which was Magneto's side of, no, we can't live with them. We should rule them. We're better than them. Like,
Right.
we need to be separate. And I thought that was really well done. And the other thing that I thought the Gifted did really well was they connected the X-Men movies without forcing it. It wasn't,
For sure.
they didn't throw out names. They never said Magneto's name, but they always referred to him as that guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
everybody knew who you were talking about when they said it.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I agree. But I kind of liked how they handled it. Um, like I remember a similar type of thing, and I'm trying to remember correctly. I think it was maybe Supergirl on CW,
mm,
and like they would always refer to Superman, but like just the most cheesy ways,
yeah, yeah,
without like how like, oh, your cousin with the cape,
right.
like, and they would always do stuff like that. It's
Yes,
like, okay, we get it.
yeah, yep,
She's related to Superman, and you don't want to say Superman, but like, you would always hear like Polaris, alluding to her dad and
yeah.
her powers that she has, and so yeah.
Well, and
And I think names might have been mentioned like once or twice, but it was never like, hey, let's focus on these characters to
yeah,
sell what we have.
it wasn't a name drop for a name drop. And even Magneto, when they talked
Right.
about him, it was almost in that fear of, if we say his name, he's gonna show up, and things are gonna get really bad. It's like it was that the way they talked about people, the Mutant Underground talked about the X-Men in reverence of, like, these are people that we wanted to live up to.
Right.
And Polaris talked about her her biological dad as this guy that almost in that fear idea, or that I don't want anything to do with him because that's not who I am. That he was that evil, and I thought they did a really good job of being able to blend all that together. uh, I also like the way they used some of the way they brought in X-Men characters um, didn't that don't get a lot of runtime in the comics.
Sure.
And I felt like they made them really important, and gave them good backstories, and you wanted to know more about them. I also like how they brought in the Struckers, the
Oh man,
the
yeah.
Von Struckers, and connected that
Mm-hmm.
all. I mean, because realistically, they just connected that TV show with the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, because
Yep.
the Von Struckers are in
No,
there
I,
too.
I I knew exactly where you were going, and yeah, like the way it works out, yeah, it could loosely be connected.
Sure. Like,
Yeah, I
and it
yeah.
fits in a and that's the best part, is because that little time frame that they talk about, the Von Struckers, doesn't really exist in a Marvel movie. It's
Sure.
the post World War II, Cap's gone type era. You know, it's the creation of Hydra,
Yeah.
or the explosion of underground Hydra that kind of fits. And I thought that was great. I was really disappointed that this show was canceled. It went 2 seasons, 29 episodes total, and they've said that they're not doing a third season. But
That's a shame.
there's a little, I'm still holding out a little bit of hope,
Yeah.
because Disney's got this own little service that they're creating, you know, the streaming service where they're gonna need TV shows. Maybe, just
I
maybe,
know.
they'll call Matt Nix back up and say, "Hey, let's do another one, and maybe instead of calling it The Gifted, let's just flat out call it X-Men." You know, and let's get an X-Men TV show, and they don't have to use the big characters, because that was the best part of this. The way they tied it to that someone in the X-Men, whether it was Cyclops or Wolverine or whoever, brought in Thunderbird and said, "Hey, we need you to start this. We need you to run this." And then he just went and ran it, and it worked
Yeah.
perfect. Like, I'd love to see more of this.
No, I would too. When it came to the shows that were on standard TV,
Mm-hmm.
not like not streaming services or whatnot, but it's just regular TV. As far as comic book shows go, uh, Gifted was my favorite
Oh yeah,
for sure.
yeah. This
Um,
and this came out. So the first season of this was only a couple years ago. So Arrow had been going strong. The
yep,
Flash had been going strong.
yep.
Legends of
You got
Tomorrow,
yeah, yeah,
Supergirl,
yeah.
all that
You
DC
got
stuff.
all those. You have Agents of Shield.
Mm-hmm.
You can even throw in like Walking Dead or iZombie as far
Yep.
as comic properties go.
Well, and
And
even Legion had
yeah,
been out.
yeah,
Eh,
man. I haven't seen the second season, and I think the third season is
Oh,
coming out soon of
yeah.
Legion, and I loved that first season too. But yeah, Gifted took the initial cake.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was The Gifted was the one that I haven't watched. I'm not up to date on the Flash. I'm not up to date on the Arrow. I'm not up to date on any of the DC
I'm
movies.
about a half season behind on all of those.
Yeah, yeah, I actually yeah, no, there's some of them I haven't even started from last year's. I started watching Legion, the second season of Legion, and then just and then Gifted came on, and I'm like, no, I gotta watch Gifted. And I had all the Gifted episodes just waiting for me to watch when I had time to
Right.
watch them.
Well,
And
and the thing with Legion is it it is so heady.
yeah,
Like like there's no room for distraction. You can't like pick up your phone and be playing on it a little bit. Like
no.
you have to focus on it for almost an hour every time. And because like I try to be pretty good about like not like losing myself in Facebook or something while you
Yeah,
know watching something. But every once in a while something comes up and you do it, whatever. But like
yeah,
I looked at my phone for like 10 seconds and it threw me off the whole rest of the episode.
yeah. And you feel like you got to
So
go back and rewatch it. And there
right,
there were episodes of Legion, even in the first season, where I would finish the episode and I'd go, I don't actually understand what I just watched. I have to watch this again before I watch the next one, because I don't feel like I understand anything that just happened.
right.
Because it was whether my brain started thinking about something else, or I got sidetracked, or whatever it was, but I lost my focus on it and then just got lost in the episode.
Yep.
And there's so many little things, and watching him go in and out of his own
Yeah.
consciousness and all that just made it really um, really difficult to follow, but still really good show.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like you were saying, like the Von Struckers, I really loved that they put them in there. Watching, the brother and sister like finally like do their powers together was really
Oh yeah.
cool. And um what else? Like I loved seeing people like Blink come
Oh yeah.
in, especially like coming off of Days of Future Past. It was kind of cool to see like a younger version of her, and yeah, there's all kinds of stuff I really love about the show, and just the little connections.
Yeah, they I liked Thunderbird, Blink, there was
Mm-hmm.
Polaris. I thought they did an excellent job of bringing in the Frost sisters.
Yes.
Without
Yes.
bringing in Emma Frost, they were able
Yep.
to use those characters, and like the way they had their powers working and the battle that they had between each other, like
Mm-hmm.
it was awesome. I loved the way that went. Um
Yeah.
the so my idea of what they used for Bishop was they have the Morlocks in there by name. There's no characters in there wasn't any that
That's
were
right.
called
Okay.
out that were from the original Morlocks, at least from the
Yeah.
comics.
Yeah.
Not that you could tell. Um,
Yeah. I forgot about that a little bit. Yeah, you're right.
and
Um,
yeah, the guy
it
who
it
was
was it
heading that.
wasn't Bishop,
No,
but it was nice ways to have a character like him.
yes, and he was the one. Like the Morlocks in the comic books did not have a scar on their face, but Bishop had the scar on his face, the M scar on it,
Right.
and he the but then also he had the power in the Gifted. This non-bishop, and I don't even remember the name they gave him. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it, because he's such a minor character. He's not in it a
Yeah.
lot, but he had the same powers. He had the powers of when he took damage, he absorbed
Yep.
the energy from it and was able to direct it back out.
The
And
way I looked at that was as far as the M,
mhm,
because in Days of Future Past, like they have uh kind of like the it's like a prison
yeah,
lineup or something
mhm,
like that, and all of them have
yeah,
the M on their face to mark them mutant.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
so
that's
I
where
I
in
kind
the
of figured they were probably going with something like that.
yeah, I think that's exactly what they were going with. And but Bishop in the comic books, that's why he has that scar, is because he's from the future, and when he came back into the past to stop the the extinction of mutants, or stop whatever cataclysmic event was going to happen at that time. I don't remember when the first episode or first issue of Bishop, but he like that's why he had that scar on his face, was because from the future it was that same thing. It was just like World
Yeah.
War II and
Yep.
the Star of David. It was
Sure.
it's that same idea, and that's what I thought they did really good within the Gifted, is they brought that feeling of, hey, this is World War II level stuff that's happening in present day. And Eddie and Jesse are hilarious in the chat, and this is the most active the chat has ever been during a show when you put these two guys in there. Um,
Yep. No
Eddie
kidding. Yeah.
apparently dated a Frost sister, and Jesse asked if they gave him the cold shoulder. Like, that is great.
Yeah, I'm just getting that stuff now. Yeah, we got to give the shout out to Jesse's been here for a little bit of time. Jesse's from Tank Zombie Studios, Grolix Podcast, Last Starfighters Entertainment Group.
Yeah,
Eddie, we know him from all
he's
kinds. If you are a Podcast Arcade follower, you know him from Daydream, Mega,
yeah
Paranormal
he's the
Dads, Falcon
Podfather.
Dads,
He's the
and then
Podfather.
yeah, so it's that's
Yeah,
funny just
those.
seeing him jumping in.
Yeah, it makes it really hard to
It's
carry on a conversation when I got the chat flowing up there, and it makes me laugh as I'm trying to make a comment. Like,
So yeah, so you podcast listeners later, we gave a little rundown of what's going on, but you'll have to go and check out the YouTube feed
yes,
to see their shenanigans, and it's amazing. Don't be
Eddie,
sorry for derailing us.
you
You're
can't
part of the
derail us.
show.
It makes the show more fun. Come on.
We derail ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I put in the show notes every week that we're gonna go off topic. We like, come on, this is a Geekvice like standard. We always run into something that we weren't supposed to talk about or that we weren't planning on talking about. So this is perfect. But no, the one character that I thought was really interesting from The Gifted that didn't there was kind of an analog, but they changed her up quite a bit. Was Riva, the head of the the head of the inner circle, and she kind of reminded me of like Banshee or Siren, like just that whenever she screamed or yelled, like it affected everybody's
Yes, for
powers,
sure.
which I
Yep.
thought was really cool. But I also liked. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more backstory for her. There was one episode where they did a little bit on where she came from, but I kind of want to know more about her. And the other one was the kind of she was kind of the head of the mutant underground, but was the like Thunderbird was in charge of a group, but he was underground with them.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what her name. They called her the Dragon Lady, but she was like the lawyer that Thunderbird goes and talks to try to get help, and she ends up dying. In spoilers, sorry guys. Um, she's only in a couple episodes, but she has like I want to know a lot more about them, and so it'd be really cool. And that's why I really hope Disney will actually pick this up and put it in their streaming service, and maybe go in and give us more, like give us some backstories for some, like give us some spin-offs with some characters, and even if it's just since it's a streaming service, they could only just do a little bit, and the they could just do like a half season, 6 episodes or 3 episodes
Yeah.
or something like that.
And I mean, I agree. I think it would be cool, but I mean, just trying. This is where my the logistics of things take over my brain.
Oh yeah, right.
And like, you know, Disney Plus, like as far as Marvel goes, like they already have like 3 shows that are going to happen. They're going to have Loki one. They're gonna have Wanda and Vision,
Yeah,
and then I think they're gonna have Bucky and
and
Falcon.
Falcon. Yeah,
So that's 3 Marvel shows right there. And then like the Mandalorian for Star Wars and
yeah.
whatever other like Disney or Pixar things come up. When Kevin Feige said that it's going to be a long time before we see X-Men. Like I really truly think it's going to be a
It's
while.
yeah, yeah. We're not gonna see it in Phase 4 at all. I think we might see some characters show
You
up
know,
here
we
and
we
there,
we
but
could maybe see something. I think maybe just because it's easy and because of little rumblings here and there, like we might start to see like a Deadpool pop up because I think
oh,
he's the only one that they're
yeah,
gonna keep.
Deadpool's not going away. Deadpool 3 is going to happen. You know it's going to happen. Um, they that's got to be that movie has made so much money that I was really kind of surprised. That movie raised the price for Disney, like to buy it. It was just by itself that movie forced Disney to fork over even more money.
Yeah.
So that's going to keep coming back. But
Oh yeah.
and I think honestly, taking a break of a 3 to 5 year break on the X-Men, and then coming back with a Marvel written, Marvel directed idea, um, a Marvel direction,
Yeah.
even like I think that's actually a good idea for the Marvel franchise or for the X-Men franchise as a whole.
No,
Like,
I agree too. Like I'm of the nature that like I don't. I'm not one of those people that finds things sacred.
Mm-hmm.
So like, remakes and new people taking over characters, like that's all gonna happen. There's no way that we can prevent that from happening. Um, but I do think, like, with a little bit of respect and whatnot to the franchise, and to, maybe on a bigger scale, um Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Yeah.
He's gonna get recast. Like
Yeah.
that's all there is to it. But I think
He
giving it
has to. You
that
can't have a 70-year-old Wolverine.
well, right, and here's the thing. He he said he was done with
Yeah.
Logan,
Mm-hmm.
and as cool as it would be to see him put on the yellow suit and be up alongside Doctor Strange and Benedict Cumberbatch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, he had his time, and he's done. And I think maybe that him ending and then having Dark Phoenix and all that, I think it wraps things up in a nice way to put that version of the franchise to rest. As much as I would love to see that just integrate into um the MCU, and in saying that, that would also bring the Gifted and stuff along with it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that that's going to be the direction that they go.
Yeah.
And I'll always be a little sad about it, but yeah, give it time to rest.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the X-Men is just. I was disappointed when Marvel put out the Inhumans. That was absolute, like, I, I was excited when they said they were going to do it, and then when they did it, and I actually watched it, I'm like, man, this is so, like, just so weak. And after hearing about why they did it and what happened because of it, I was, you know, it made a little bit more sense to me. But I feel like I feel like the X-Men universe can, um, they give it its time, they let it breathe, they bring it back, and when they bring it back, it will be they it will be able to provide something to the Marvel cinematic universe, like, as a whole, the Marvel movie and TV franchise as a whole. I think it'll provide something that they can't get from Avengers movies, and they can't get it
oh
from
yeah,
Spider-Man movies,
yep.
and they can't get it from the TV shows that they're wanting to produce, that they're saying they're going to produce now. The X-Men can provide something that they're never going to get in any other thing. And I I think I mean, they could just do so much with it. There's so much that could be brought in from the X-Men universe that they would be fools to let it go away. But and no, Eddie, they have not talked about relaunching Daredevil yet. Not yet. They will, but not yet.
So I I have I always do like ridiculous amounts of research when it comes to like film and TV making, especially like, when it comes to like horror movies
Mm-hmm.
or comic films. And I have found a few people like on Twitter who have been like really really reliable like inside sources.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going deeper than just like, oh, what does comicbookmovie.com post or whatever. A lot of that
Right.
stuff is not
Yeah.
the most trustworthy. So to go into, for podcast listeners, to go into the YouTube chat, that a couple things have been brought up just so you are in the loop. um Have X-Men been discussed for MCU? I mean, yes, in a sense where like it is going to happen, but Kevin Feige, who runs the film side of things, has said that it is going to happen, but it is going to be a while.
Yeah.
And by a while, I think it could be 5 years minimum.
Well, yeah. They're starting to talk about, and we're actually on the same topic. We're going to find a lot of information here in 4 days
Yes,
because
with
Marvel's going to have their panel at San Diego Comic-Con, and he's already said, Kevin Feige has already said he's going to reveal Phase 4, which is the next phase. So we're going to find out a lot more from there.
So here's like things that have already loosely been announced. Thor 4, like
Yeah.
it was just announced that Taika Waititi was going to direct the 4th installment.
Mm-hmm.
We already know that they are starting to do initial casting ideas for Shang-Chi.
Yep.
So that's going to be a whole new thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Don't forget about the
Eternals is
Mm-hmm.
going to be a thing. Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with James Gunn. Thank you very much.
Now the news that I heard on that is that one won't be. That's going to be towards the end of Phase 4 because
Yeah,
he can't start working on it until he finishes up what he's currently
Suicide
on.
Squad 2.
Yeah, which is Suicide Squad
Yep.
2.
Yep.
So it
So
won't
that'll be a
be.
while.
It won't start until I think
Um,
2020.
I mean, that's just next year.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Well, but
going a couple years now.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, look at just that schedule of, that's a lot of movies to
Mhm.
be making.
And I have a feeling some of those might end up getting pushed a little bit. Like I don't know that
well,
we're
yeah,
gonna get every one of those within the Phase 4. We talk about this like Marvel says, hey, this is what it's gonna be, but their phases have been pretty good about, hey, this is a 5-year gap.
Yep.
Here's the movies that are gonna come out in these 5 years. That's Phase 1. This is Phase 2, and they've done a really good job of lining that out. So I'm really kind of curious on how far they go, and because it was when Phase 2 was going on, that's when they listed out, like, before they started Phase 2, they're like, okay, here we go. Here's 3 and 4 already lined out on what all that was. He could come in to San Diego Comic-Con with phases 4, 5, and 6, and obviously we know they're going to change, but general idea, that would be crazy.
So I think that the next acquirement that would come out would be Fantastic Four. I think that would happen before X-Men.
Yeah.
And it, again, that just gives it plenty of time to even, not even just out of respect, but just out of like, people are so used to what this X-Men is, that it'll give it a chance to kind of escape people's minds.
Yeah.
So then to go into the like Daredevil and all of that. And Jesse, you said you think Netflix owns the rights. So Marvel isn't, they're not going to play the same game that they did before where they licensed out their characters.
No, those are all still Marvel.
So I don't know the exacts, but I believe that with like the Marvel Netflix shows, that those characters are played out, or the rights are played out the same way that Incredible Hulk is. Yeah. Hulk, his solo movie rights is still owned by Paramount. That's why we don't see a solo Hulk film, but we do see the character popping up within all these other movies. Now, Netflix does have the solo rights to these characters for 2 years. So No, Marvel can't go and make another Daredevil TV show or Daredevil movie, but say another movie that is lightly discussed is Spider-Man 3.
Hmm.
If they wanted to put Vincent D'Onofrio in it as Kingpin or
They can do it.
something of that nature, they
Yeah.
can do that.
Hmm.
So we could start to see these characters pop up a little here or there. Don't know for sure. I think again it'll be a little while. I don't think they want to just shoehorn them in.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right thing. So
Well,
that is
and
a little bit of that information for you.
yeah, there's also, there's also that idea that all of these, like any of the rights that are to Netflix are not creator rights, because Netflix didn't create those. They just they produce
Distributed.
them, they distribute them. That was
Yep.
the platform at which, so Netflix gave money to do those, but they didn't have any say or anything over those. So the database of all things, yes, we have a lot of useless information between the two of us, but
Yeah.
it's so I'm not worried about the Defenders type shows. The stuff that was on Netflix, those are going to show back up. It's just when they want to use them and how they want to
Yep.
use them.
Yep.
I
For sure.
I could see Daredevil will get another season on the if the big if to that is if Disney Plus can hold the can can get away with adult content. That's the one
So
question that
so
we don't know what Disney Plus is going to be. We don't know if that's
from
going to be a
from from
family
my
oriented.
understanding is they don't want to do R-rated type material on Disney Plus. Hulu that
Right.
Disney owns, like I don't know the number, like
Yeah, they own a percentage.
70%
Yeah.
of or whatever. Um, and they already have shows going to Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
Already now is the Runaways, and then Disgust is a Howard the Duck animated show.
Right.
A few other things I don't recall at the moment, but Hulu actually did say, like, when the time is right, we are interested in those shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, whether or not it happens, we don't know yet. But there is, um, you know, slight talk here and there,
Yeah. And so
and
that's going to be the biggest question with the Disney Plus
and
thing.
Hulu is getting a Ghost Rider series. That's
Oh,
right,
really? I hadn't heard that.
with Robbie Reyes, the
Ooh,
newest Ghost Rider who was in
Agents of Shield.
Agents of Shield. He's
Yeah.
getting his own spin-off show.
Oh, that's cool. I like that idea.
So it opens up a lot of things to,
That's another
you
one
know,
that
to,
I'm behind on. I haven't watched this season of Agents of Shield. I need to do that.
yeah.
I have them recorded. I just haven't watched them yet. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna need to
yeah,
get caught up on
yeah,
those.
yeah. The roads have been derailed for sure, but it's all still within, X-Men
Yeah.
Marvel. What's the future of all this stuff hold?
Well, and that's
And
kind of the cool part is, um, I I'm excited to see what comes out of San Diego Comic Con this
yep.
weekend. There's gonna be tons of big announcements and all that stuff. I'm also really excited for on the we'll switch a little bit here to go to San Diego Comic Con. The one set of news that's not Marvel or DC that I'm excited to hear about from San Diego Comic Con. I'm excited to see the trailer for Kevin Smith's new his reboot, Jay
Yep.
and
Jay and
Silent Bob
Silent Bob
reboot.
reboot.
I'm excited to see what he's doing with that. So it because the stuff he's been putting up on YouTube is utterly hilarious, and some of the when they were doing the looking for places to shoot, like they're hilarious. They're so much fun. So um, yeah, it's there's so many good things coming to the world, and I feel like Marvel is kind of with what they've done, they have pushed the bar for good storytelling and and good movie making that I feel like we're starting to see more movies that they're like, you know what? Hey, guess what? If Marvel can do it, like, why can't we? Like, let's just make. And it doesn't have. I'm not talking about like a whole interconnected universe of 20 some movies. I'm just talking about, hey, if we're gonna take this movie, hey, maybe instead of just following the same cookie cutter thing on what we're gonna do, let's just write a really good story and find good people to act in it and see what happens. I think we're gonna start seeing some more of this stuff come up where it's just good, fun popcorn movies
Yep.
that just box office gold is what it's gonna be. Box office gold.
Yeah, and I think the people that try to use the Marvel formula, I think, which isn't a bad thing. It's just it's what business is.
Yeah.
I think the thing that hurts other things the most is just is that rush job mentality. Oh
Mm-hmm.
man, like we have to strike while it's hot. Let's get
Yeah.
it out now.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason why sequels
That,
usually fail, because they hurry to get something back out. They're like, oh, that first movie was really good. Quick, let's get the second one out, and then we'll go ahead
right.
and do a third one right after it. I don't know,
Yeah.
a la The Matrix. There was so much potential within the first movie that they could have, like, if they would have just slowed down and taken their time, maybe 2 and 3 could have been just as good. But they rushed them, and you could feel it within the movies, and that's one of my that's one of
Well,
my favorite trilogies. So
right, and it's like, hey, these tropes, or what became tropes from the first Matrix, were so good that they just kind of were like, let's just make whole movies about that.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the bendy kung fu fighting and the
mm-hmm.
the aerial stuff. It was just like, let's just do whole movies of that, and it's like that's kind of like that was like a pretty small percent of the first movie,
Yeah,
and then almost the entirety of the rest of them.
yeah, exactly. Yes, that is DC's model right there. Wait and see what Marvel is doing. Yep. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I haven't looked it up, but I know that Marvel's panel, their Hall H panel is the 20th. I have a feeling DC's is the 21st. We'll see what happens. They're not on
That's
the same
funny.
day.
That's really funny. If unless I'm incorrect, I think I heard that DC is not having one.
Oh, really?
I think.
Oh, that
So,
that would be interesting. That would be really interesting.
yeah. So I don't
San,
know. We'll see
San
what happens.
Diego.
But no, I mean, it has, I mean, it's
That's not what I
based
wanted.
in realism, but that has become the joke.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what they have to offer. They kind of figured that they're hey, let's do this super shared cinematic universe thing. Has not quite worked out the way they thought. Not that they're completely abandoning it, but they're doing a restructure.
Yeah. Well,
And
they need to go back to the writing board, and they need to work on their writing.
well, and I think where they're kind of leaning towards, and we'll see. I don't completely blame all of their writing. I blame their after the fact, let's change in the editing department
Sure. That could.
mentality of, oh crap, like people didn't like this thing, or hey, look what movie just came out, let's see if we can make it align up with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've had really strong filmmakers in the DC universe.
Yeah.
I know that it's
Mm-hmm.
become a popular thing to bash on Zack Snyder, but look at his work. David Ayer, look at his work and what
Yeah.
they've done. They're not slouches. You look at these films and they look amazing. I still haven't seen Shazam.
I
But
haven't either, but
Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins, great director, award-winning director James Wan, who did Aquaman, another guy who's just proven to
Yeah.
be a mastermind. Like, they have really strong filmmakers. It's just after the fact
Yeah.
they
I
go in and they mess with the films, and you can tell that in the editing of these films that they've become very messy.
yeah. Yeah, there was when I was because I mean, I'm known on this show for bashing DC and their movies. But the whenever I try to the when you watch a DC movie or any movie, it doesn't even have to be DC, Marvel,
Correct.
whatever it is, you have to have
Yes.
a villain that has their purpose of what they're trying to do has to be meaningful. They can't be like you can't have a villain that's weak and have a good movie. You have to have a hero and a villain, and they both have to be strong characters. And right now, DC writes their villains, their purpose of what they're trying to do is so flimsy and weak that it's it ruins the movies. And Aquaman, I think, is the one that was the only one that really got that right. Uh, Even Wonder Woman, with as good as it was, the villain in Wonder Woman was weak. Like it didn't meet up to what Wonder Woman needed it to be for that movie to really be a great movie. It was a really good movie, but in order to be a great movie, it was missing a villain that was as powerful and as important to the movie as Wonder Woman was. In
Sure.
Aquaman, those two, the villain and the hero in Aquaman, were in exact opposites, and neither one of them had to lose. Like they both couldn't win at the end of the movie. Like,
Sure.
and that's exactly what happened, and that's what look at look at the Marvel movies. Look at Avengers Endgame. Like Thanos can't win in Avengers Endgame, and the heroes win too. That's not possible. Like it was impossible. One of them had to lose. It's
Yeah.
same thing with Infinity War. Same thing. I mean, could you imagine an Infinity War movie where the heroes were just fine at the end of the movie and Thanos still snapped his fingers? Like, it wouldn't have worked. The
Right.
movie would have fallen apart. And those are the kind of things that we lose within that I feel like DC is missing when they're writing their stories, when they're writing their movies. And it could be that the writing's there. You could be exactly right. The writing's there, but then when they go through and edit it and get it all together, they've taken out all the
Well,
parts that show the
and
importance.
I will say, like, I mean, sure, I think there is strong parts of the writing, but I think where they kind of lost themselves in their whole, shared universe was the idea that um, it was rushed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and
Well, you could tell with Aquaman and Wonder Woman, those weren't rushed. Those were
no,
movies that
well,
they said, "Hey, we're going to do this and we're going to take our sweet time putting it together," and they did.
yes, because like here's the thing, like if you look at Man of Steel and um it I don't have a problem with what happened in that movie.
Mm.
What happens is he becomes Superman, um and everybody always complains about, oh, the world destruction, he destroyed like 5 major cities and blah blah blah. Well, I mean, here's the thing, and he killed and whatever, but like he was Superman for like days.
Right.
It was not a long time.
Yeah.
That's okay. Now you move into Batman versus Superman. Um, Batman sees there's this threat. He wants to get rid of it. Um, Superman now all of a sudden is this beacon of hope. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
loves. He's worshipped. There's
Yeah.
monuments built of him. Um, and then he dies, and it's like he was the guy that we needed. And it's just like he's been Superman for a very short amount of time, and now all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
you know, he's this alien that caused all this destruction, and now everybody loves him. Like, they never had that build up time, and now he's dead, and now we're all supposed to care about him. And then Justice League is this whole movie about we need this Superman
Yeah.
because everybody loves him. Not no.
Yeah.
That is not how it was set up. You know, and I'm also not the type of person that's like, oh, everything has to follow the comics to a T or
No.
anything like that. But like, Doomsday was brought in and like just gone. Like, if you remember Doomsday and the death of Superman and all that, like, it took everybody to try and bring down Doomsday. And he just kept taking everybody out, every character, like, you know, and um yeah, it was, again, it's just so rushed to try and put this huge thing together to have Justice League come out in, I mean, I guess technically it was like the 5th movie, but you know, what happened in Wonder Woman and what happened in Suicide Squad really had no point to what happened in Justice League.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's the 3rd movie, and it's just very rushed. And again, that's, you know, so people make mistakes. It
Yeah.
happens. But that's the thing going forward, is like, just try not to rush.
Yeah, take your time. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you have a fan base that's gonna keep coming back, and if you, and that's the thing that Marvel really did. Like, really, they were never worried that the fans weren't going to be there. Like, the fans will be there when the movie comes out. The fans will be there, and
Yes.
it's going to be fine. And DC needs to get to that point as well. They need to get to that point where it's like, hey, you know what? If it takes us 3 years to put together this, you know, this movie, and then it takes 3 years, and at the end
Right.
of that, it'll be good. And
Because here's the thing, you know, you say that the fans will be there, and that's kind of what they're oh, they'll be there. Justice League did not do well
no,
at
yeah,
all, and that's the thing. Like, eventually you will start to lose the trust of your
yeah,
fans,
and
and your biggest movie, I mean, let's be real here. DC and Justice League should have been the biggest superhero film of all time. Batman versus Superman should have been, really, you
yeah,
know, but Justice League really should have, because by all means, it is more popular than in the long term
yeah,
of history. Justice League is more popular than the Avengers.
yeah. Well, especially the
It
Avengers.
should not have done what
Yeah,
it did.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But what DC has done now, with what they've done with Wonder Woman and what they've done with Aquaman, I think they have started to build some of that trust back
Yep.
up.
Yep.
And what is going to be really curious is I was not a fan of the first Suicide Squad. I really wasn't. But I'm a
Yeah.
really big fan of James Gunn.
Yeah.
So I want to see what he's going to do with the second one. Is it is he is DC willing to take off the handcuffs and say, James Gunn, go make me a movie. Go make us a movie that you can, like, that's going to be good, and we'll back off and put our hands up and say, you know what? You go do what you need to do, and what comes out of it? Are we going to get a Suicide Squad that's going to feel like, is it going to feel like Guardians of the Galaxy but not, you know what I mean? Are we going to
Yeah.
get that, or are we going to get something completely different? Are we going to get something that doesn't feel like a DC movie? Because honestly, that's what needs to happen. You look at these Marvel movies and you go from one to the next, like the title to title to title, and not the movies aren't the same. They might have the
Right.
same tropes and the same ideas and the
Sure.
same
Yeah.
general stuff, but they're not the same. You know, what was in Guardians of the Galaxy was not like Iron Man, you know?
Oh yeah.
So
At all.
so DC stopped trying to make Green Lantern look like Superman, look like Batman. Well, actually, they made all the Batman movies and they tried to make everything look like Batman. Well,
Right.
why?
Yes.
So what are
Yep.
you? Even Suicide Squad, Suicide Squad felt like a Batman movie more than it felt like a Suicide Squad movie. Like,
Yeah.
let him go. Let's see what happens. I don't know.
Yep.
We'll have to see.
The only way that happens is if James Gunn or any other director gets final cut.
Yeah.
And that has to be, in the contracts beforehand.
And they should.
That's the problem, is these other directors didn't get final cut, and
Yeah.
I know we would have had much stronger movies. Maybe still not perfect, but much stronger movies if it weren't for that going back in
Well,
meddling.
it might not even be final cut. It might just be a matter of, hey, this is my editor, and this is the editor that I want to do my movies. Because like Quentin Tarantino is one that he had the same editor for every one of his movies until here
Yeah.
recently, because they had died, they had passed away, and so he
Yes.
had to
Yep.
have a new
Yep.
editor. But the same editor on all of his movies. Well, his movies didn't feel the same, but they
No.
were all really good. I mean, the editor is a very important part of it, and I think you're right. You just you gotta have it's gotta be done right, and
Yeah.
you can't go and. I don't have a problem with reshooting things after the fact to be able to,
It
get something right, because that happens all the time.
it happens in every single movie
But
ever.
yeah, but we
Reshoots
just
has
hear about
become
it
a
now.
bad word. Um, I suppose DC is taken that to another level, but it's made it a bad word anytime someone hears reshoots. Oh, the movie's garbage.
Yeah.
It's messed up. They gotta fix it. No, they always allot time for reshoots.
Yeah. I mean, hey, with all the video editing that I've been doing for these podcast stuff, it's like I wish I had reshoots, because
Yeah.
um, there's times where I get done and I'm like, ah, crap, that didn't come out the way I wanted it to. Like, I need to
Uh-huh.
go fix that, especially for the stuff that I put on the YouTube channel with the gaming stuff. It's like, oh man, I can't go back and re-record that. I got to deal with whatever happened there. Oh, there was
Yep.
like, I don't know, it happens here in the podcast too, 'cause you can't quite see it because they're just off the camera, but like right there, you'll see a dog's head show up every
Oh
once in a
yeah,
while.
yeah,
And because they're getting to the point now, they're like, dude, you've been doing this too long. We want to go outside.
yeah. It's been a
So
while.
yeah, we have got to
Yeah.
put a pin
Here,
in this thing. But
yeah, I was gonna say, here's the deal. Like, we could obviously just keep going. There's so much more to talk about, and it's fun. It's fun to talk with you. It's fun to talk about this stuff.
yeah.
It's fun to talk with Eddie and Jesse in the chat. Especially when weirdos hijack the chat.
Well,
um,
self-proclaimed.
but no, this was fun, and I think, obviously we've all got lives and whatnot, but I think it'd be nice to. I don't even have to be part of it. I'd like to see this type of stuff happen more often when it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. No, it was great. I'm glad you were available to come on. I know Kip's gonna be mad when he listens to this and wasn't a part of it, but you know what? That's what he gets
He's gonna
for
be
traveling
like
for work.
yelling at his speakers, "Hi!"
Yeah, like wait,
Good
wait,
and
wait.
bad.
Yeah, no, he's it's what he gets for traveling for work. I tell him, he travels too much and he needs to stick around, but he's got to pay the bills. And
Yep.
until people start paying us to make this podcast, we got to keep our day jobs. So, if you want to send us money, anyone listening, hey Jesse, I hear you make millions of dollars. Why don't you send some of those millions to us, right?
He makes that teacher money.
Right,
He
right.
he makes them randors.
Yeah, the fake dollar bills. The Yeah, for some reason though, my last paycheck was all paid in $3 bills. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, they don't have three. There are no $3 bills. There's $2 bills, but no threes.
Hmm.
Um. Anyway, all right, everybody, go find Billy over at Daydream Instruction Manual. You can find him on Facebook. Go to the podcastarcade.com. You can find all the great stuff that he does there, and all the cool stuff that Eddie does there. Um, you can follow us, the Geekvice. You can go to our blog, geekvice.blogspot.com. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/geekvice. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's always fun. We got lots of stuff, lots of big plans coming for that. As soon as school starts back up and I'm not so damn busy and my kids stay up too late. But lots of good stuff coming on the YouTube channel. Lots of cooperative games coming up there. Maybe even some board game stuff that is really cool because I found a lot of board games digitally that I can record. I just have to convince people to play with me. So you can follow us on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Geekvice. Billy, are you on Twitter?
I am at Zombilly Horror. That is
Zombilly Horror.
ZOMBILLYHORROR.
That's horror, not horror.
Horror, not horror. I notice. Maybe Jesse needs to give me them class teachings because I guess I don't quite always pronounce the horror
Yeah, right.
appropriately. So
Oh, that's all right. I get in trouble for slurring my words all the time, and I haven't even been drinking tonight. So, um,
what is
yeah,
in that soccer cup?
right. It's just water. But all right, guys, you can send us an email. Let us know what you thought of the show. Let us know what your thoughts are for Marvel's Phase 4. Let me know what you thought about The Gifted, because I'd really like to hear some other. If you didn't like it, let me know why, because I really want to know that. You can reach us by email. Email us at geekvice@gmail.com. I'm getting distracted again. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the podcast, and we will see you next week.
This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.